There's something I never told anyone about that trip, not even the friend I was driving to see, and I think that silence is the reason it happened the way it did. 4 years ago, on a wet road outside my hometown, I was driving home from a party a little too tired and a little too distracted, and I hit something. I told myself for a long time it was a deer. I still tell myself that most days. But there was a moment, right after, standing on the shoulder in the dark, when I thought I heard something that wasn't an animal sound. And I didn't check. I got back in my car and I drove away, and I have never gone back to that stretch of road since, not once, in 4 years. Until that night. Because the fastest way to my friend's wedding, the one I could not miss, ran directly through it. I told myself it would just be a few minutes of discomfort. Drive through, don't look at the shoulder, keep the radio up, get past it. That's the kind of bargain guilt lets you make with yourself, the small negotiated terms that let you keep moving forward without ever actually facing anything. About 10 miles before that stretch, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. No missed call before it, which I only noticed later, just a voicemail appearing on its own. I put it on speaker, mostly out of boredom on a long, empty road. It was static at first, 30 seconds of it, and I almost hung up. Then, right at the end, a voice, garbled, but not garbled enough that I couldn't make out 3 words. You didn't stop. I told myself it was a scam call, one of those AI voice things people warn you about now. I deleted it. I kept driving, but I noticed my hands had gone tight on the wheel in a way they hadn't been a minute earlier, and I noticed that noticing, and I pushed both of those thoughts down the same way I'd pushed everything else down for 4 years. 15 minutes later, another voicemail, same static intro. This time, the words at the end were clearer. You never even looked. I pulled over. I want to be honest about why. It wasn't bravery. It was that my body had stopped believing my own explanations for what was happening, and some part of me needed to physically stop moving in order to think. I sat on the shoulder of an empty highway at 11 at night with my hazards on, staring at my phone, and I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I opened my Maps app and looked at exactly how far I was from that stretch of road. 6 miles. I told myself that was a coincidence. Voicemail glitches happen, spam calls happen. I have never in my life believed something less while telling myself I believed it completely. I got back on the road because staying still felt worse than moving. 2 miles later, my headlights caught something on the shoulder ahead, low to the ground, and my whole chest seized before I got close enough to see it was just a torn tire, black rubber curled up like something dead. I laughed out loud in the empty car. That laugh had nothing to do with anything being funny. It was just my body needing to release something. The third voicemail came right as I crossed into that exact stretch, the one I'd spent 4 years avoiding. I almost didn't answer it. Almost. But there's a specific kind of pull guilt has on you, a need to know exactly how bad the thing you're afraid of actually is, because not knowing has its own separate weight. I played it. This time there was no static at the start. Just the voice, right away, closer to the mic than any voice has a right to be. I know you can hear me. I've been waiting since you left. I pulled over again, right there, right on that same shoulder, engine running, because some old buried part of me understood, without being told, that this was the place it wanted me to stop. I sat there for a long time. I didn't get out. I want that on record. I never got out of the car. But at some point, I don't know exactly when, I became aware that the passenger door, which I had locked before I ever left my apartment that morning, was standing open. Just slightly. Just enough that the interior light hadn't caught it. I drove the rest of the way to the wedding without stopping again, not for gas, not for anything, and I told my friend I'd had car trouble when she asked why I looked like I hadn't slept in days. I haven't taken that road since. I take the 2-hour detour now, every single time, and I tell people it's because of traffic. It has never once been about traffic. And about a month ago, on a completely different road, in a different state, my phone buzzed with a voicemail I never heard ring in. I haven't listened to it yet. It's still sitting there. I don't think I'm ready to know what 4 years of silence sounds like when it finally decides to answer back. I trusted a stranger's voice on a radio more than I trusted my own eyes that night, and I still can't fully explain why. except that real fear makes you hand your judgment over to whoever sounds calmest, and I think that should frighten people more than it does. I drive long haul sometimes for a friend's moving business, cash job, no complaints. That night, I was hauling an empty trailer home, 3 hours out, nothing on either side of me but truck stops and dark fields. I keep a CB in the cab out of habit. My dad ran one for 30 years, and the chatter makes the long stretches feel less like nothing. Channel 19 is standard, usually it's weather. Traffic. Somebody complaining about a diner 2 exits back. Around 2 in the morning, a voice cut through, low, even, no theater in it at all, which is exactly why I believed it before I had any real reason to. You got something behind you, driver. Might want to check your mirrors. I checked. Dark road. My own taillights. I keyed back a thanks. Figured some trucker was messing with a guy alone at 2 a.m. The voice came back fast. Not gone. Just far back. It closes the gap when you slow down. I wasn't scared yet, not really. I was doing this quiet social math, weighing whether he sounded like someone having fun at my expense or someone who actually knew something and got no pleasure from saying it. His voice had zero enjoyment in it anywhere. That absence is what convinced me before any evidence did. 5 minutes later, headlights showed up in my mirror, far back, and there had been no other traffic on this road for 20 minutes. I sped up. The lights kept the exact same distance behind me the entire time. Not gaining, not falling back. Matching me with a precision no tired, distracted driver manages by accident. I keyed the mic, asked who was talking, asked if he could see what was behind me from wherever he was. Almost a full minute of static before he answered. I can't see it. I can hear it, though. That's how I know. I laughed it off on air. He didn't laugh back, and that not laughing convinced me more than any scare tactic could have. A real prankster can't resist enjoying it a little. He just sounded tired. Like a man reading off weather he'd already lived through once before. He told me to switch to Channel 9 for a mile. Just listen, don't talk. I didn't know this man. He could have been leading me straight into something worse. I switched anyway, because some part of my brain had already decided, without asking my permission, that trusting a calm voice was safer than trusting the silence behind me. Static first. Then, underneath it, breathing. Slow. Deliberate. Too close to whatever mic picked it up to belong to someone a mile down the road. And fainter, underneath that, my own voice, looping the exact words I'd just said on Channel 19 30 seconds earlier. Same pitch, same hesitation in the same place. I want to try to explain what that does to a person, hearing yourself played back from somewhere you never sent it. It isn't the kind of fear a monster gives you. It's the kind that makes you doubt where the edges of your own body actually are. I switched back to 19 so fast I nearly dropped the mic. The headlights were closer. Not gradually. A lot closer, all at once, and sitting too high and too centered to be a normal car's headlights. I asked him what to do. Don't take the next exit, he said. Whatever's on the sign, it's not really there tonight. Keep driving till you see a green mile marker with old paint on it, not reflective. That one's safe. I didn't ask what that meant. This is the thing about real fear, the kind that isn't performed for anybody. You stop needing explanations. You just need the next instruction, and you follow whoever sounds calmest because your own judgment has already quietly resigned from the job. The exit came up, lit, a town name I actually recognized from other runs. Everything in me wanted to take it. Find people. Find light. I didn't. 2 miles later, the lights behind me were gone. No fade. No sound of an engine falling back. Just gone, the way something is gone when it decides to be, not the way something is gone when it simply drives away. I found the old mile marker about 10 minutes after that, hand-painted, crooked, clearly older than the road built around it. The second I passed it, my radio dropped to static on every channel and stayed that way the rest of the drive. I never heard that trucker's voice again, on any channel, any night since. I've left the radio running more nights than I probably should. I never went looking for what happened at that town off the exit I skipped. Some part of me decided a long time ago that I don't actually want the answer. I just want to know, next time, which channel to switch to. And about 2 weeks after that night, on a completely different route, on a night with clear skies and normal traffic the whole way, my radio, which had been off the entire drive, clicked on by itself for exactly 4 seconds before going silent again. I didn't touch it. I want that on record. I never touched it. I still don't know if I did something wrong that night, or if something wrong just happened to be near me. I've turned that question over so many times that I've stopped trusting either answer. And that's the part nobody warned you about with something like this. It isn't the fear that stays with you afterward. It's not knowing which version of yourself to believe. I was driving home from my aunt's funeral. 11 at night, on I-70, maybe 40 miles past the last town that actually shows up on a map. And I need you to understand something first. I'm not someone who picks up strangers. Never done it before that night. Never done it since. So when I tell you I pulled over for a man standing alone on the shoulder with no car anywhere in sight, I need you to know that wasn't recklessness. It was something quieter than that. You bury someone in the morning, and by nighttime you feel like you owe the world a little more kindness than usual. I know how that sounds now. I didn't think about it that way then. He said his name was Danny. Said his car broke down a ways back. And here's the part that still eats at me. I hadn't passed a single car on that shoulder the entire last half hour, broken down or otherwise. I noticed that. I want to be honest with you. I noticed it immediately, clear as anything. And then I just put it away somewhere. Filed it. Because noticing a thing and admitting to yourself that you've noticed it are two completely different acts, and most of us spend our whole lives choosing the first one, because the second one means you'd actually have to do something about it. His shoes were soaked through, heavy with mud, in this saturated way, like he'd been standing in something a lot deeper than a puddle. It hadn't rained in that county in over a week. I know because it had been dry at the funeral that morning, dry the whole drive down. I looked at his shoes for maybe 4 seconds. In those 4 seconds, I made a decision. A conscious one, not to think about it. I've replayed that decision more than anything else that happened after. I turned the radio on because the silence had started to feel like it had weight to it. He asked me to turn it off. I hadn't even landed on a station yet. It was still just static, and he wanted it gone anyway. I turned it off, told myself he was tired. People say strange things when they're tired, don't they? Around 20 minutes in, my phone lit up. My sister, just checking in, the way she does most nights. I glanced down to read it. When I looked back up, he was staring at the phone, not at me. Not the road, the phone. And there was something in the way he looked at it. Hungry isn't even the right word for it. More like he was trying to see straight through the screen to wherever the message had come from, and that put something cold down my spine before my brain had even caught up to why. "Can I see that?" he said. Not really a question. Already expecting yes. I said no. I laughed when I said it. That laugh you do when your body is trying to talk your brain out of taking something seriously. That laugh might be the most honest sound I made all night. Everything after it was a performance. I was performing calm for a stranger in my own car, because some old animal part of me understood that if he saw fear on my face, something would change. I didn't know what. I just knew I couldn't let it show. I mentioned the next town, Wexford, said I could drop him at the station there. Without turning his head, he said, "Wexford's gone. They shut it down after what happened at the mill." I didn't answer him. I want you to understand it isn't that I didn't hear him. I heard every word with total clarity. My mind just had nowhere to put that sentence. It does that under stress. Takes something it can't sort and shelves it. Tells you you'll deal with it later. Later turned out to be 4 in the morning, wide awake, staring at my ceiling, running that sentence over and over until the words stopped sounding like words at all. I pulled off at the next lit exit. Told him this was as far as I could take him. He didn't argue. Got out slow. And right before he shut the door, he leaned back in and said, "You should check your back seat before you drive again. This is the part I think about the most." I didn't check right away. I sat there, maybe 30 seconds, hands on the wheel, doing this quiet math about whether checking would make whatever he meant real. As long as I didn't look, it could stay just a strange thing, a stranger said. The moment I looked, it would become a fact I had to carry. I looked. It was empty. But there was a smell back there that hadn't been there before. Wet earth. That very specific smell of a hole that's just been dug. And I knew that smell instantly, with a certainty that frightened me worse than the smell itself, because I don't remember ever learning what that smells like well enough to place it in under a second. I called my sister. My hands were shaking too hard to hold the phone steady. I told her everything. She went quiet for a long time. Then she said the thing that made the whole night fold in on itself. There's no Wexford exit on I-70. I just checked. There's never been a Wexford. I filed a police report 2 days later, mostly because I needed someone else to hold the memory for a while. There was nothing to investigate. No name matched anyone. No car was ever found on that shoulder. I still drive that stretch. I have to, for work. I've never picked up anyone since. But some nights, right around mile 40, I catch myself already checking the back seat before I've even consciously decided to. My body doing the noticing, my mind still refuses to finish. The road trip wasn't my idea. It was my sister Emma's. She'd just accepted a job in North Carolina, and instead of flying, she wanted to drive there with me before starting a completely new life. She said it would be our last chance to spend a few uninterrupted days together. I agreed because she was right. By the second day, we'd fallen into a routine. She drove mornings. I drove afternoons. We stopped whenever we found interesting diners instead of fast food. Nothing about the trip felt unusual until we checked into a motel outside Knoxville. The woman behind the front desk smiled as we walked in. "You two are back early." Emma laughed. "I think you've got us confused with somebody else." The woman frowned. "Oh, I'm sorry." She looked genuinely embarrassed. "I could have sworn you checked in about an hour ago. Neither of us thought much about it." People make mistakes. We took our room keys and went upstairs. About 20 minutes later, someone knocked. I looked through the peephole. Nobody. I opened the door anyway. The hallway was empty except for a housekeeper pushing a cart. She looked surprised. "I thought your wife was still inside." "My, what?" "The woman who just asked me for extra towels." I glanced behind me. Emma was sitting on the bed scrolling through her phone. The housekeeper's smile faded. "I'm sorry." She quietly walked away. Emma looked up. "What was that about?" "Nothing. I didn't even tell her. It sounded too ridiculous." The next morning, we left before sunrise. Around mid-morning, we stopped for gas. Emma went inside while I filled the tank. As I finished, a man walking his dog stopped beside me. "You folks taking the scenic route?" "I guess." He nodded toward the highway. "I saw your SUV parked at the overlook about 30 minutes ago. We've been driving." He looked confused. "Oh, I guess it was another white SUV." Again, a perfectly reasonable explanation. Still, it was the second time someone thought they'd already seen us somewhere else. By lunchtime, I'd convinced myself I was overthinking it. Emma had no idea anything was bothering me. We found a small bookstore attached to a coffee shop and spent almost an hour wandering around. While Emma paid for a novel, I browsed the local history section. An older employee walked over. "You two sure get around." I stared at him. "What? I saw you this morning." "No, you were asking about hiking trails. I've never been here." He looked genuinely uncomfortable. "I'm sorry. I must be mixing you up with another customer." I didn't say another word until we got back in the car. Then I finally told Emma everything. The motel. The housekeeper. The gas station. The bookstore. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she smiled. "I know what's happening." "You do?" "You've noticed it because you're paying attention now." "What?" "Confirmation bias." I frowned. Once your brain notices a pattern, it starts collecting evidence that supports it. "So you think it's all coincidence?" "I think we're tired." Honestly, that explanation made me feel better. Until that evening. We checked into another motel. A completely different town. Different state. Different chain. The clerk asked for my ID. She typed for a few seconds, then stopped. "Huh. What?" "It says you've already checked in." "No." She turned the monitor toward herself. "This is strange." She deleted something. Typed again, then looked back at us. "Sorry. Our system says room 204 was assigned to you about 40 minutes ago." Emma laughed. That's impossible. I know. The clerk called her manager. After a few minutes, they blamed a computer error. We accepted the explanation. What else could we do? That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside, then voices. I looked through the curtains. 2 police officers were standing in the parking lot. One of them knocked on the room next to ours. A couple answered. The officer spoke for a minute before walking away. The next morning, while loading the car, I noticed the motel manager watching us. As we pulled out, he waved me over. I don't want to alarm you. He lowered his voice. The officers weren't here for the room next door. They weren't? He shook his head. They came looking for your room. My stomach tightened. Why? They said someone matching your descriptions had reported a stolen vehicle. Our SUV isn't stolen. I know. I showed them your registration after they left. What happened? They apologized. He hesitated. But what? They said whoever filed the report knew your names. I didn't tell Emma until we'd been driving for almost an hour. She didn't speak for several minutes. Finally, she asked, Did they say who made the report? No. She looked out the window. Then quietly said something I still think about. What if somebody isn't pretending to be us? I looked at her. What do you mean? What if they're just getting everywhere before we do? Neither of us spoke again until we reached North Carolina. Months later, Emma called me after unpacking the last of her boxes. She'd found something mixed in with her moving paperwork. It was a motel receipt, same date as our trip. Same white SUV. Same 2 names. Same room number. The only problem was, neither of our signatures were on it. Someone had signed both names in handwriting that looked almost right. Almost. Emma mailed me the receipt. I still have it in a folder at home. Every now and then I take it out, convinced I'll finally notice something that explains everything. I never do. The signature always looks just familiar enough to make me wonder if I'd written it myself. On a day I can't remember. The road trip was supposed to fix something, not the kind of thing you talk about openly. The kind everyone notices but pretends not to. My older brother, Ryan, hadn't been himself since our dad died. He still laughed at jokes and showed up to work every day, but it always felt like he was somewhere else. When he suggested we drive from Illinois to Tennessee for a long weekend, I agreed without thinking. It would just be the 2 of us. Music, bad gas station food, and a few days away from everything. For the first 4 hours, it worked. We argued about which songs were overplayed. He made fun of the snacks I'd packed. At one point, we spent 15 minutes trying to remember the name of a movie we'd watched as kids. It felt normal again. Then we stopped for lunch. It wasn't a chain restaurant, just a little diner off the interstate with maybe 8 tables. While we were waiting for our food, Ryan excused himself to the restroom. He came back looking distracted. You all right? I asked. Yeah, you don't look like it. I just thought I recognized somebody. Who? He shrugged. Probably nobody. I didn't push it. After lunch, we got back on the road. About 20 minutes later, Ryan checked the mirror. That's strange. What? That gray pickup behind us. I looked. It was an older truck with a ladder in the back. So? I think it was at the diner, probably. He nodded, but he kept glancing at it every few minutes. Eventually, the truck passed us. I figured that was the end of it. An hour later, we pulled into a scenic overlook to stretch our legs. The gray pickup was already there. Ryan stopped walking. See? I looked from the truck to him. Maybe he took a different route. There wasn't another route. The driver wasn't inside. Neither of us thought much about it until we left. 10 minutes later, the pickup pulled onto the highway behind us. Ryan turned the radio down. You really don't think that's weird? I think you're looking for patterns. He didn't answer. Instead, he sped up. The truck stayed back. He slowed down. The truck passed us without hesitation. As it went by, I looked into the driver's window. An older man. Baseball cap. Didn't even glance in our direction. Happy? I asked. Ryan forced a smile. Yeah, but he didn't sound convinced. By early evening, we reached our hotel. Nothing fancy, just somewhere to sleep before finishing the drive the next morning. While we were unloading our bags, Ryan suddenly froze. The truck. I turned. It drove past the hotel entrance without slowing down. "See?" I said. He kept driving. Ryan watched until it disappeared. "Yeah." That night we walked to a nearby restaurant. Halfway through dinner, Ryan apologized. "I've been acting weird." "A little," he laughed. "I know. What was that really about?" He stared at his drink. 3 weeks ago, somebody started parking outside my apartment." "What?" "I never told you because I thought I was imagining it." "Same truck?" He nodded. "Gray pickup. Why didn't you call the police? And tell them what?" "Somebody parked on a public street?" I couldn't argue with that. "Maybe it's a coincidence," I said. "I hope so." The next morning we checked out. Ryan seemed calmer, almost embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he said as we got in the car. "I let myself get carried away." I smiled. "Told you." For the next 2 hours, nothing happened. No pickup. No strange looks. Nothing. Then we stopped at a small gas station. Ryan went inside while I filled the tank. An elderly woman stepped out of the convenience store carrying a coffee. She smiled politely. "You boys headed south?" "Yeah." She pointed toward the interstate. "You might want to wait a little while." "Why?" She hesitated. "That gentleman in the gray truck asked if you'd already left." Every sound around me seemed to disappear. "What gentleman?" "The older fellow." She pointed toward the empty road. "He was here about 5 minutes ago." I looked around. There was no truck. What exactly did he ask? She thought for a moment. "He said he was trying to catch up with his son." Ryan walked out carrying 2 bottles of water. "You ready?" I looked at him. The woman looked at him, then back at me. A puzzled expression crossed her face. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. I thought, "What?" She shook her head. "Nothing." We got back on the road. I didn't tell Ryan. I convinced myself there had to be an explanation. About 40 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mom. She never called unless something was wrong. "Hey, Mom." The first thing she asked was, "Did Ryan come back home?" I laughed. "He's driving?" "No." Her voice sounded confused. He just knocked on my door. I felt every muscle in my body tighten. "What?" He looked upset. "He asked if you'd already left for Tennessee." I looked at Ryan. He was humming along with the radio, one hand on the wheel, exactly where he'd been for the last 40 minutes. "Mom," I said carefully, "don't open the door." She went quiet. A few seconds later, she whispered, "There's nobody outside anymore." Neither Ryan nor I ever saw the gray pickup again. But every few months, my mom still brings up that afternoon. She insists someone who looked exactly like my brother stood on her porch, smiled politely, and left without saying another word. Ryan refuses to talk about it. The strange part isn't that someone might have been following us. The strange part is that, somehow, whoever it was seemed to know exactly where both of us were supposed to be.